A great day to you, and welcome to the second division of Lesson 6 of our Sunday School lessons, God in Babylon. Last week we saw how God revealed his supremacy as king over all to Nebuchadnezzar. Today we will look at the division titled In Belshazza's and Darius' Reigns. We have two sections. A shows sovereignty on Belshazzar, and B helps the deceived Darius. A shows sovereignty on Belshazzar. You can read Daniel chapter 5 for the full story. In Daniel chapter 5, we see Belshazzar, who had become king in Babylon after his father Nebuchadnezzar left the scene. Belshazzar must have been a witness of the things that God had done during his father's reign and should have been privileged by that experience to acknowledge God as supreme. However, Belshazzar failed to learn from his father's experiences. He was filled with pride as his father was and failed to recognize God. At the time, he held a big party for 1,000 of his royal officials and they drank wine together. Under the influence of the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring in the gold and silver vessels that Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that he, along with his officials, his wives, and his concubines, could drink from them. They drank as they praised their gods of gold, of silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. What stupidity! As they did this, a human hand appeared and scribbled an inscription on the wall. No one could interpret the writing, and the king became very scared. Daniel had become well established as one who had an extraordinary spirit and could solve problems, however mysterious. Soon, he was called upon to interpret the writing on the wall. Daniel's interpretation revealed that this was a judgment from God against Belshazzar, who had refused to acknowledge God as the one who rules over the affairs of men. According to Daniel, the inscription read, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin, meaning God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. You have been weighed on the scales and found deficient. Your kingdom has been divided and given over to the Medes and Persians. That judgment took effect that very night. Belshazzar was killed and Darius the Mede became king. Again, God had shown his supremacy in Babylon. B. Helped the deceived Darius. Chapter 6 of Daniel contains the reference story here. God had used Daniel to reveal himself in two administrations of the Babylonian kingdom. God had deliberately planted Daniel in Babylon. Though it seemed that he had been there as a captive, he showed himself to be more of an instrument in the hands of the mighty God. The handwriting on the wall that Belshazzar saw had come to pass. A new king was now on the throne. Still, Daniel remained relevant in the scheme of things. Because of God's spirit in Daniel, he was preferred over all other leaders in Babylon, and he was put in charge of them. Quite similar to the story of Joseph. Of course, envy arose from the other leaders, and they began to plot against Daniel. They sought to find some error in him, but found none. They eventually influenced the king to sign a decree that would nail Daniel. God did not prevent them from all of their plots. He was waiting to reveal his power through their evil plots. The decree was that no one would pray to any god except the king for 21 days. Of course, Daniel would have none of that. He had a relationship with God and had to always talk to him. Daniel defied the decree like his friends had done with Nebuchadnezzar's statue. This time it was a den of ferocious lions that Daniel had to face. As the fire had no effect on Daniel's friends, so did the lions become disinterested in making a meal of Daniel. God delivered Daniel, and the king Darius acknowledged him as the God of all, and the plotters had not only been put to shame, but they and their families became a meal for the lions. God had allowed all of this drama that unfolded to show his supremacy in Babylon, and the unbelieving kings submitted to his awesome power. Lesson summary. We should learn from historical events that God is the one who reigns over man's affairs, and we are to be his instruments in his hands to reveal him and his power to the world. May we remain steadfast in showing God to the world in Jesus' name. This is where we wrap up lesson 6, God in Babylon. Next week, we will move on to lesson 7. Have a blessed week ahead.